As Governor Huntsman said, there are al-Qaeda training grounds there. There's also the Haqqani network that can be trained there as well. And they also are one of the most violent, unstable nations that there is. We have to recognize that 15 of the sites, nuclear sites, are available or are potentially penetrable by jihadists. 6 attempts have already been made on nuclear sites. This is more than an existential threat. We have to take this very seriously. The United States has to be engaged. It is complicated. We have to recognize that the Chinese are doing everything that they can to be an influential party in Pakistan. We don't want to lose influence. I'm answering your question. You asked me about the money that the United States gives to Pakistan. This is a dual answer. A nation that lies, that does everything possibly that you could imagine wrong. At the same time, they do share intelligence data with us regarding al-Qaeda. We need to demand more. The money that we are sending right now is primarily intelligence money to Pakistan. It is helping the United States. Whatever our action is, it must ultimately be about helping the United States and our sovereignty, our safety, and our security.
You would continue that aid to Pakistan?
At this point, I would continue that aid, but I do think that the Obama policy of keeping your fingers crossed is not working in Pakistan. And I also think that Pakistan is a nation that it's kind of like too nuclear to fail. And so we've got to make sure that we take that threat very seriously.
Governor Perry.
I understand where she's coming from, but the bottom line is that they've showed us time after time that they can't be trusted. And until Pakistan clearly shows that they have America's best interest in mind, I would not send them one penny, period. I think it is important for us to send a message to those across the world that if you are not going to be an ally of the United States, do not expect a dime of our citizens' money to be coming into your country. That is the way we change foreign policy. Now, if we want to engage these countries with our abilities and our companies that go in and help to economically build these countries up rather than just writing a blank check to them, then we can have that conversation, because I think that is a change in foreign policy that would be adequate and appropriate and a positive move for us. But to write a check to countries that are clearly not representing American interest is nonsensical.
You want to respond, Congresswoman Bachmann?
Well, with all due respect to the governor, I think that's highly naive because, again, we have to recognize what's happening on the ground. These are nuclear weapons all across this nation, and potentially al-Qaeda could get a hold of these weapons. These weapons could find their way out of Pakistan into New York City or into Washington, D.C., and a nuclear weapon could be set off in this city. That's how serious this is. We have to maintain an American presence. They certainly aren't looking out for the best interests of the United States. I wouldn't expect them to. But at the same time, we have to have our interest, which is national security, represented. The best way we can do that with an uneven actor state is to have some sort of presence there.
I just want to give Governor Perry the chance to respond. She just said your views were highly naive.
And we need to be engaged in that part of the world. I never said for us not to be engaged. I just said we need to quit writing blank checks to these countries and then letting them decide how these dollars are going to be spent. We've got Afghanistan and India working in concert right now to leverage Pakistan. I think if we would create a trade zone in that part of the world where you have all of those countries working together, that may be the answer to getting Pakistan to understand that they have to work with all of the countries in that region.
All right, I want to move on. You'll have a chance to respond. Very quickly.
If I can just clarify, we're not writing just blank checks. We're also exchanging intelligence information, so we aren't writing blank checks in that region.
Let's take another question from the audience. Please give us your name and your organization.
Israel Ortega with the Heritage Foundation. Is the money that we drawn back from U.S. troops in Afghanistan really worth the risk of allowing Taliban to expand territories and al-Qaeda to grow safe sanctuaries?
Governor Romney, $2 billion a week the United States is spending right now in Afghanistan. $2 billion, more than $100 billion a year, and U.S. troops are supposed to stay for another 3 years at least, till the end of 2014. Is that money well spent?
We spent about $450 billion so far. 1,700 or so servicemen and women have lost their lives there, and many tens of thousands have been wounded. Our effort there is to keep Afghanistan from becoming a launching point for terror against the United States. We can't just write off a major part of the world. Pakistan is the 6th largest country in the world. We can't just say goodbye to all of what's going on in that part of the world. Instead, we want to draw them towards modernity. And for that to happen, we don't want to literally pull up stakes and run out of town after the extraordinary investment that we made. And that means we should have a gradual transition of handing off to the Afghan security forces the responsibility for their own country. And for the region, what happened in Indonesia back in the 1960s, where we helped Indonesia move towards modernity with new leadership. We brought them in the technology that allowed them to trade in the world. We need to bring Pakistan into the 21st century, or the 20th century for that matter, so that they can engage throughout the world with trade and with modernity. Right now, American approval level in Pakistan is 12%. We're not doing a very good job with this huge investment we make of $4.5 billion a year. We can do a lot better directing that to encourage people to take advantage of the extraordinary opportunities the West and freedom represent for their people.
Governor Huntsman, do you agree with Governor Romney that the U.S. has to stay in Afghanistan at these levels?
No, I totally disagree. I think we need to square with the American people about what we've achieved. We need an honest conversation in this country about the sacrifices that have been made over nearly 10 years. We have dismantled the Taliban. We've run them out of Kabul. We've had free elections in 2004. We've killed Osama bin Laden. We've upended, dismantled al-Qaeda. We have achieved some very important goals for the United States of America. Now, the fact that we have 100,000 troops nation building in Afghanistan, when this nation so desperately needs to be built, when on the ground, we do need intelligence gathering, no doubt about that. We need a strong special forces presence. We need a drone presence, and we need some ongoing training of the Afghan National Army. But we haven't done a very good job defining and articulating what the end point is in Afghanistan. I think the American people are getting very tired about where we find ourselves today.
Let me let Governor Romney respond.
Let me respond. Are you suggesting, Governor, that we just take all our troops out next week? Or what's your proposal?
Did you hear what I just said? I said we should draw down from 100,000. We don't need 100,000 troops. We don't need 100,000 troops in it. Many of whom can't even cross the wire. We need a presence on the ground that is more akin to 10 or 15,000. That will serve our interests in terms of intelligence gathering and special forces response capability. And we need to prepare for a world, not just in South Asia, but indeed in every corner of the world, in which counterterrorism is going to be in front of us for as far as the eye can see into the 21st century.
And the commanders on the ground feel that we should bring down our surge troops by December of 2012 and bring down all of our troops, other than perhaps 10,000 or so, by the end of 2014. The decision to pull our troops out before that, they believe, would put at risk the extraordinary investment of treasure and blood which has been sacrificed by the American military. I stand with the commanders in this regard and have no information that suggests that pulling our troops out faster than that would do anything but put at great peril the extraordinary sacrifice that's been made. This is not time for America to cut and run. We have been in for 10 years. We are winding down. The Afghan troops are picking up the capacity to secure their country, and the mission is pretty straightforward. And that is to allow the Afghan people to have a sovereign nation not taken over by the Taliban.
Let me bring the speaker, and what do you say? Pull out?
Just one point.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just about the generals on the ground. And listen, I think it's important for the American people to know we have achieved some very important objectives in raising standards in Afghanistan and helping to build civil society. But at the end of the day, the President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief. Of course you're going to listen to the generals. But I also remember when people listened to the generals in 1967, and we heard a certain course of action in Southeast Asia didn't serve our interests very well. The President is the Commander-in-Chief and ought to be informed by a lot of different voices, including those of the commanders.
Speaker Gingrich.
Look, I've got a good. He gets a response. I get a response. Of course, the commander-in-chief makes the final decision.
How about the rest?
Of course,
How about us who haven't had a response?
Of course, the commander-in-chief makes the final decision, but the commander-in-chief makes that decision based upon the input of people closest to the ground. And we've both been to Afghanistan. I've been to Afghanistan. The people I speak with there say we have a very good prospect of the people in Afghanistan being able to secure the peace and their sovereignty from the Taliban. But that if we pull out on a precipitous basis, as Governor Huntsman suggests, that we could well see that nation and Pakistan get pulled into terror and become another launching point to go after America. That's a mistake. That's why you listen and then make your decision.
Speaker.
Well, if I'm a little confused about exactly what we're currently debating, because I think we tend to get down to these narrow questions that in a sense don't get at the core issues. The very first question I thought about Pakistan is the one that should be the starting point. The gentleman said that when we went in and killed bin Laden, that we drove U.S. Pakistan. Was this like a 30-second response?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm happy to play by the rules. I just want to know what they are. But I think this is the heart of the American dilemma. We were told, a perfectly natural Washington assumption, that our killing bin Laden in Pakistan drove U.S.-Pakistan relations to a new low. To which my answer is, well, it should have. Because we should be furious. Now, and that's where this has got to start. You want to keep American troops in Afghanistan? You accept hot pursuit. You say no sanctuaries. You change the rules of engagement. You put the military in charge of the military side. You overhaul the State Department and AID so they get the job done. And you do it for real, and you do it intensely. And you tell the Pakistanis, help us or get out of the way. But don't complain if we kill people you're not willing to go after on your territory where you have been protecting them.
Senator Santorum.
I agree with Ron Paul. We are not fighting a war on terrorism. Terrorism is a tactic. We are fighting a war against radical Islam. And what radical Islam is telling, all the radical Islamist leaders are saying, is that just wait America out. America is weak. They will not stand for the fight. They cannot maintain this. They'll set time limits. Politics will interfere, and we will tell the people in Afghanistan, we will tell the people in Iraq and other places that we will be the strong horse in the region. And President Obama, by making political decision after political decision about timelines and constraints on rules of engagement, has validated everything these radical Islamists are saying. So the answer to you, John, is that you're doing, Governor Huntsman, is that you're in exactly what all the radical leaders are saying is that America will do. That we are not in this to win. We are going to play politics with this, and then we will find this problem in Afghanistan on our shores in a very short order.
We're going to come to Congressman Cain in a moment, but just hold your horses for a second because we're going to take a quick break. Much more coming up. The former chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff calls this the #1 threat to America's national security. The candidates will answer that question on this topic coming up next. We want you to send us your questions for the candidates. Go to cnnpolitics.com or facebook.com/cnnpolitics or on Twitter. Use hashtag CNN Debate. Our coverage of this historic debate at Constitution Hall in Washington continues in a moment. Welcome back to historic Constitution Hall here in the nation's capital. We're continuing the CNN national security debate. Let's go right to the audience. We have a question from the audience. Go ahead with your question. Hello? No question from the audience. Yes, we do. We do have a question from the audience. Here we go.
Speak.
We were waiting for you.
Mike Gonzalez of the Heritage Foundation.
Thank you.
If Israel attacked Iran to prevent Tehran from getting nuclear weapons, would you help Israel launch the attack or support it otherwise?
All right, we got the question. Let me ask Herman Cain first. Did you get the question?
I didn't quite get the question.
If the